If you are a fan of the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast and would like to help support the show, there's a great way that you can do that and start a new fashion trend. We have a new merchandise page on the website which features t-shirts and hoodies that are available for sale on Amazon. Just click on merchandise in the top menu and all of the links will be there, or go directly to divebarrockstar.com/merchandise. Get started early on your Christmas shopping at divebarrockstar.com. Welcome to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, a show exploring the lives of professional musicians of all types, touring musicians, recording artists, songwriters, engineers, bar bands, wedding bands, and anyone making their living in the music industry. Whether you've dreamed of being a professional or you already are one, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Eric Baines, and I hope that you not only find some entertainment here, but also some helpful tips, trade secrets, and ideas that will help you achieve your dreams. Well, it's exciting times. It's February, and Chicago is about to get back on the road, which always makes me happy because I like hanging out with those dudes, and I like to work. So it's exciting. But it's also nice to have the time to do more podcasts because I really love doing this. And not only is it a chance for me to showcase my friends and colleagues and people that I really respect and think are doing a great job, but I'm hoping also to inspire those of you that are wanting to be in the music business or are struggling in the music business enough, because these are real stories with, so it's real information from people that have lived this stuff. It's not something they read in a book. This is all real stuff, So my goal is to inspire people and help in any way that I possibly can. So if you are actually needing an extra push or some extra advice, or maybe you're in a stuck point in your career and you just need some fresh ideas as to something new to do, reach out to me and I'd love to help. I'd love to help either through, an online lesson, or just I'll write you back, and you can reach out on Instagram, the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, or you can reach out on Facebook. I have 3 pages there. I have Eric Baines, the artist page. I have the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast page, and Eric Baines, my personal page. And I'm also starting to do TikTok. So it's new. I don't have a whole lot of videos up yet, but it's just another platform if that's the place that you like to hang out and where you would like to get a hold of me. So anyways, whatever your platform of choice, let me know your story, let me know how it's going out there, and let me know if there's anything I can do for you. My guest today is a dear friend. He's a multi-instrumentalist in the truest sense of the word. And I don't know anyone else who plays as many instruments as he does. He's also a composer, a songwriter, and a producer. He's scored TV shows like ABC's American Coco and Showtime's The Good Lord Bird. He's played on American Idol, The Voice, the Grammys, later with Jules Holland, and Glee. He's performed, recorded, and toured with such artists as Dolly Parton, John Fogerty, Blake Shelton, Brandy Clark, and Lisa Marie Presley, which we will talk all about. And I met him while we were playing with Dwight Yoakam, which he is still doing. And we had babies at the same time during the pandemic, and we've done a ton of gigs together all across America. So please enjoy my conversation with JAMISON Hollister. So you are coming to us here from Memphis, correct?
From Oxford, Mississippi, right?
Oxford, Mississippi.
Yes.
Cool. And you've been spending a lot of time there.
I have. Yes. We bought a house here. We have renovated it. This is my studio. It's it's kind of like a basement room that kind of like a little shotgun room. It's cool, man. It kind of goes for a while and holds tons of stuff. And it's been great. It's like it's a bit of a little oasis in the Southeast to have like a small southern college town, but have like tons of artists and musicians and especially writers. So it's great, man. It's a great community. And I lived here before we moved to LA, and we're back. You know, it's good. It's a good place to raise the kid.
Yeah, right. Yes, because it was like me and you and Dwight all had babies together. I was a little later, but
not that much.
yeah.
We were all in it together.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you go from talking about like guitar amps to talking about like, so what kind of stroller you got, man?
I know, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, that was like all pandemic babies.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show today and talk to us, one of many reasons, but because you spent some time playing with Lisa Marie Presley, and you know, she just passed away, and tragically, way too early, and so I don't know. I kind of wanted to get your thoughts and your experience with her, because she, you know, I remember seeing her on David Letterman when her first record came out, and thinking. I'm just thinking, this is so cool. How do I get on that gig? You know, but I think at the time, I don't even know if I lived in Denver or if I lived in LA at the time, but she just always seemed really cool. It was like, oh, you could have easily gone so many different ways as the daughter of the most famous musician ever, you know, but this music is cool. You know, like you picked a direction that seemed, you know, authentic, I guess, you know, genuine.
Yes. You know, so when she first came out on the scene, I think, I don't want to speak out of turn about stuff I don't totally know about, but I think like Linda Perry was very involved. And because I think she like co-wrote a bunch of stuff with her, or like Linda wrote a bunch of stuff, and, you know, she was doing that, like, you know, rock, straight ahead rock thing. And then when I played with her, she had just done a record with T-Bone Burnett. So it was like totally like dark, thuddy drums and steel guitar and upright bass. It was, you know, with tons of tremolo guitar. It was super cool. It was like kind of rockabilly in a weird modern way, but then just totally Americana. It was a really satisfying, cool gig, and the music was awesome.
And that's the Storm and Grace record.
Yes, Storm and Grace. It's a beautiful record, man. It's really, really fantastic. I listened to it the other day. I was like, man, God, that was a great record to play on. That was so much fun.
That's so you played on the record as well.
No,
you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misspoke. Yes. I did not play on the record. I meant the tour of the record.
Right.
Greg Lease played on the record.
Got you. Another phenomenal pedal steel. So you're multi-instrumentalist. But you mainly played pedal steel with her situation.
I did pedal steel. I did kind of like second guitar, and I did mandolin. And it wasn't on the record, but I did some fiddle as well.
That's awesome. So she definitely used all your talents.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, we've talked about her in the past, and it seems like it was a really, really great gig, and she was really nice to work with.
Yes, man, she could not have been lovelier. She was always so just like kind, like was always like asking questions, like, you know, what was it? You know, you grew up in Mississippi, you know, like, tell me about that. You know, tell me about your family. Tell me about your wife. Tell me, you know, all this kind of stuff, like questions that, you know, a lot of times you go into work for folks, and, you know, you're just working, you know, but she was always just kind of like off to the side, just kind of going, I wonder about that. Like, and always so genuinely kind, always truly, you know, we went to her house and, in England at the time, where she was primarily living. We went there to go do some dates, and she was like, all right. So we got to her house, which was cool. Also, it's like, you know, we went to her house, and she was like, hey, I'm going to make y'all some sandwiches. And she made us like, you know, like caprese sandwiches. I mean, like, so cool and sweet. She's like, I found this, you know, olive oil I really like at this market. You know, I mean, just like totally down to earth, could not be kinder, nicer, you know, all that. So yeah, I have nothing but the best of things to say about her.
Wow, that's so cool. Because there's another situation where she could go either way, you know, like
absolutely.
You know, when you meet people like that, it's almost, it shouldn't be, but it's almost a little surprising when they're nice.
Yeah, it's like, wow, you were remarkably totally grounded and normal and nice and kind and genuine and sincere, all that. Like she would always have these like fun birthday parties in LA and like, always invited us and all that. And it was always really nice to my wife and really nice to, my family would come out to gigs and stuff. She was always super cool. So, yeah.
Wow, that's cool. And like musically, how was she hands-on at all or was she kind of just, when it's time to go, she's ready to sing her parts, but, was it easy to work with her musically as well?
Yeah, man, she was great. There was no ego, nothing like that. Just like, she would, we would get to like a rehearsal and, just like you do, you get there earlier, usually before the artist. And, you're sitting there, just tuning your guitars and setting up amps and, getting sounds and all that kind of stuff. And then, she shows up and, we'll do some songs and then we'd order burritos and, and just talk and chat and hang out for a bit. And then we'd do a little bit more, then go home, that. And then, gigs, we would, do a sound rehearsal. She would, get her ears right the way she wanted them per the venue. And, then we'd be done. I mean, it was totally normal. I mean, it's just a normal artist band, relationship as far as all that goes and stuff.
Easy and fun.
It was easy and fun. And, like before the last song, we would always like take a shot of tequila. we would always like, we would end the set with Tom Petty and take a shot of tequila and just rock out. And it was fun, man.
It sounds like it was pretty normal, but like, was there in the background, is there this, oh my God, this is Elvis Presley's kid? Like as far as you were concerned, or like,
not for me so much. Like I was always kind of like, man, she's her own person, she's doing her own thing. We didn't like cover Elvis songs, like she didn't want to do that. She wanted to do her own thing. And, everyone was always totally, respectful and cool and understanding of that. And I don't remember any like specific stories, but like she would, occasionally talk about her father, but not really, I mean, it was always just kind of like, here's what we're doing right now,
Right.
But, I mean, people came to shows, they expected some, it's got to be weird to go out there and play a show and some dude on the front row is dressed up like your deceased father.
Right.
Like that's weird, it's hard. So I really felt sorry for her in a lot of ways like that, so, she had to trudge through a lot of, of mud to be able to do what she did with that. So,
yeah, I was going to ask that too. Is like, it was the music received? Because I was on Spotify listening to a bunch of her music, and the numbers aren't great, as far as listens, and like kind of surprisingly low for somebody of her stature, and which is unfortunate because they're great records.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I wonder how that comes across live too. Like, were people more, and I guess you kind of answered it a little bit, but were people more there to see the daughter of Elvis Presley or there to really take in her music, It
was a mixed bag. There's fans of hers who just like adored her and they were at like, every show they could make it to. Yeah. We see that with like Dwight's gig. You show up and you're like, man, that same person has been in like every Texas show, that you do. It's like they are huge fans and that's awesome, but then there's always going to be the loudest voice, the most dressed like Elvis person out there. You can't hide those folks too well. So
right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about all the people who are like, I've seen Dwight 32 times, and so it happens with Chicago as well, obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I bet you got some long-term fans, man.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I first saw him in 1968, and like, it's crazy.
Oh yeah. And do they like have like very specific, like set list questions and stuff like that?
Yeah. In request, that's
request. Yeah.
That's the other problem with a band of 55 years and like numerous hits. You're never
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
you're never gonna make everybody happy. Like we'd be there all night, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're so God, and because so we came out to that Memphis show,
Mhm.
and which was totally sold out, totally awesome. Y'all destroyed. Y'all melted all the faces, and it was a cold night, so we needed to be melted.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
But man, it's just, you forget, it's just hit after hit after hit. It's just, I mean, just nonstop. It's so impressive. It's such a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun, man. I'm glad. It's so nice to hear once again, just wrapping it up, I guess, about Lisa. That she was a great person, and it's so cool that you had the kind of privilege to spend time with her and play her music. Didn't she like invite you? Like, there's something about your honeymoon.
Yes, man. This, I posted something on social media about it because I was like, I don't usually, like, when some of my family's died, I don't, I'm so bad at posting stuff, and I get sad, and it's just not, I just don't like to share a whole lot sometimes, but with this, I was like, this poor woman has just been dragged through tabloid mud her whole life, and just people, all these opinions, all these stories and rumors and whisperings and gossip and all that. I was like, I just want to set the record straight to at least a small number of people, who will see whatever I write, and just like, friends and family and stuff like that. So the story is, we had planned our wedding date, and then I got, the email. It's like, here's the tour dates. And I was like, oh, baby, we have a problem.
Oh, shoot.
Either I go and, do these dates, and, because we need money right now. And I either have to go do this or like sub this out or something like that. But, I think I should probably do these dates. It'd probably be the best thing. And we were like, yeah, let's do it. So we're like, all right, let's just change the wedding date. Who cares? Right? It's just a date. So we changed it. And then later I was talking to Lisa, and it's after some show, and she was like, so y'all like moved your wedding date? I was like, yeah, we just, you had the dates, and, we were able to, we had enough time. We only sent out, a few save the dates, and we're like, then we, sent out a new save the date, and it's, it is what it is. It's fine. We're if McGee had, had some project pop up, then we would have done the same thing for her. It is what it is. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's horrible. But thank you. And then like the next day she was like, listen, I was thinking, I want to do something for y'all. How would you like to, stay? I have a house in Hawaii. Do you want to go there for your honeymoon or something? And I was like, yes. She's like, yeah, fly you there too. I got, all these airline points and stuff. I can just fly you there. And I was like, oh my God, yes. I mean, just so casual with it, just like, and so she's like, well, how long do you want to stay? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, I mean, as long as you want, I don't care. Wow. until I go to stay there, obviously. But I was like, well, I don't know, 10 days. She's like, sure, cool. Just send me the dates. And I mean, it was just like so sweet and normal and casual and just genuinely kind. So we went from being like, oh, what are we going to do for a honeymoon, to having like this like dream honeymoon that she gave us. Like, I wouldn't have had that otherwise. Even if we had gone to Hawaii, we wouldn't have been able to have that experience at that nice of a house, in a nice place, and be able to go, rent a car and do all these extra things that go horseback riding and all these extra things we were able to do because she did that. So there's just like the softest place in my heart, forever for her, for doing such a kind gesture for us.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's so cool.
It is so amazing.
Wow. And we've all worked for many big artists. That's not a usual occurrence. That's
no.
That's a very special thing.
It is a very special thing to invite you into her home. I mean, that's her house too. You know, I mean, it's not just like a, VRBO. I mean, she didn't rent that thing out. I mean, that was like her vacation home. She spends a lot of time there, so anyhow, it was just a truly one of the most touching, kindest gestures anyone's ever, done for me.
Wow. That's awesome. That's a great story. It's a great story too, because like it also illustrates on another note what it is to be a musician, and like, hey, when the gig comes, you got to move your wedding.
You have to do what you have to do, man. I mean, how many, God, the countless friends' weddings I've missed, the countless, so many sacrifices you have to make in order to have this lifestyle and to be able to do this job. And because, like you said, when it comes, you got to take it, and you say no too many times, people quit asking.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I've had so many friends talk to me like, I want to do a road gig. And like, okay, I'll keep you in mind. And then it comes up and I'm like, hey man, there's a tour, but it leaves Friday,
Yes.
Well, I can't do that. Well, that's what it is, man. That's how this works.
This is how it works. Someone dropped out. Someone's, got like a kid on the way or some cataclysmic thing, or got another tour and they had to drop out, and it happens like that,
Yeah.
Quick.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And we met playing with Dwight Yoakam, who you're currently still playing with, right?
Yes, sir.
That's cool. And that probably was another one. In fact, I kind of know because I was there, but that came up quickly.
Yeah. I mean, they all do. And it did come up quickly. And it's funny because, I think if you had asked me before I moved to LA, like what's one of your just like total, dream gigs, like, that would definitely have been on the, the hit list. It's like, I mean, Dwight Yoakam, hell yeah, of course I want to play with Dwight Yoakam. Wow. I love his music. And, on top of that, I get to do all the, I get to play with all my toys. So,
yeah. Yeah. Well, that's so cool. And like, I mean, if you were a fan, you probably knew, but I think a lot of people don't realize that Dwight's an LA guy,
Yes.
And, like, so you come out here and end up on that dream gig that maybe you weren't even looking for because you didn't know that. I don't know. I didn't know that, but then once you become, once you know him, then you're like, oh, well, this is all about LA and California and Bakersfield and stuff. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have saw that coming either. I mean, especially me. I'm not really a country guy. When I got the gig, it was like, wow, I never expected to be here,
Yeah. Like on top of it being a country gig, it's not like a Nashville pop country gig where you're basically just like, you're a pop guy. It's not like going from playing, just basically another pop gig with, more country lyrics and, like some twangs here and there. And, I mean, Dwight is like country.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, there's no tracks. There's no like 5-string bass. I mean, it is.
Yeah. And it's beyond that too, like, which I learned after being in the band for 5 years. Like when someone says I like country music now, I'm like, that means nothing to me. You like Texas country? You like, and,
oh yeah.
And Dwight is a very specific niche, even within country music. Like it's because the one thing that I related to as a kind of rock, pop, R&B guy is like, it's loud, it's rocking, it's Bakersfield, it's electric.
Oh yeah.
When you see it live, it's not pretty per se. You know what I mean? Like it's loud, rocking country,
Oh yeah. It's like totally like, honky tonk music on an amplified scale.
Yeah.
Like on a macro scale, it's not, we keep it real.
Yeah. That's a lot of fun. Yeah. And on that gig, like I say you're an instrumentalist and lots of people say they're instrumentalists, multi-instrumentalists. Sorry. But you are sort of the most extreme multi-instrumentalist I've probably ever met or maybe ever will meet. Like, so
I'm sorry.
Oh man, it's good to be rare and one of a kind. You know what I mean?
Oh man. Well, yeah. People are like, how'd you learn how to do all that? I was like, man, do you have any idea how much time in like rooms I spent by myself practicing? It's like, that's kind of, it's just woodshedding, just like, and I would always like just have this interest to, I would see like an old concert footage or something like that. I'm like, I want to do that. Why don't I just do it? It's like that, just like dumb childlike way of going about it. I feel like, oh, I should do that. And, I don't know if I should have, but nevertheless, it's worked out for me. It's been kind of like my thing, just the sort of like, Swiss Army knife approach.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously. And so you play fiddle, pedal steel, keyboards, accordion, mandolin, harmonica on that gig. Maybe once in a while some guitar, but
every once in a while.
What's your real instrument?
It's so funny, man. God. Mostly, I'd say at the end of the day, if someone just had to like put a gun in my head, I'd say I'm a fiddle player usually. It's like the most torturous instrument ever. Like it drives me crazy. I kind of halfway don't even enjoy it. It's just such a exercise in self-flagellation. You're just constantly reminded of like, oh God, it's just like that little bit of flat or sharp to get right where you want it. And then you're not even in the realm of, voicing and, performance and, how I'm phrasing this or that, so it's just really hard to do really well. And it constantly reminds you of that. So that would kind of be like sort of what I am at the end of the day. Steel guitar is just like one of my total loves because you can do so much on that thing that you just can't do with any other instrument, so it's pedal steel is pretty fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I would have guessed pedal steel. So what did you start on?
Like in
your first instrument?
My very first instrument. Wow. Mm-hmm. Piano lessons as a kid.
Okay.
Which I promptly, forgot all that. Piano lessons. And then my first like real love of music would have been drums actually. That was really like, I want to do this. And then I was able to actually do it and like do it well. And that I was really into it for a long time. So when I listen to a song, the first thing I listen to is like, what do the drums sound like? What's the snare drum sound like? What's the kick drum sound like? That's my, first go-to. So
that's interesting. Yeah, me too. I'm a frustrated drummer. I played in high school and I did marching band. And
yeah.
I actually taught marching percussion for like 11 years.
All the paradiddles.
Right. Yeah. It still, doesn't necessarily apply to a country gig. I don't know. Or any gig for that matter. No. Maybe Chicago. Definitely, but that's so interesting. I think also as a producer, for me too, it's like if you're doing any kind of rock or pop music or whatever, anything, it's like the drums are so important to get that right first. If you don't have good sounding drums, the track's just going to suck.
Absolutely. Well, when you turn the volume down, when you're like mixing, I like to mix all different kinds of ways, but when you turn the volume down really low, what are the two things you hear? Drums and vocals. That's it.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, it's all about drums and vocals.
So you had piano lessons, but it's definitely not sort of your prominent instrument. I'm guessing. I'm not trying to say that like I've played a million shows with you. That's definitely not your instrument. No, I'm saying like you sound fine. You sound great, But I know that through rehearsals and stuff, I know that's not your strongest like thing that you're the most comfortable with. Yet it's a big part of the Dwight show.
It is. I'm very good at Dwight Yoakam keyboards, keyboard parts. I know. It's funny. I can't like I can, improvise pretty freely, like on guitar, on mandolin, fiddle, steel guitar, all that. But, keyboards, I kind of have to think about what I'm doing. And, you start getting in, black keys and I'm like, all right, wait. I didn't sign up for all this. It's like, I just kind of have to spend more time with it, learn it. I just don't practice it as much as I should, and also, certainly with the Dwight gig, the keyboard parts there, it's like, they're so, it's like so country specific, they're like Floyd Kramer guitar parts, basically. I mean, sorry, piano parts.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you're playing like classic old school honky tonk piano, or you're playing like classic rock organ, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and he does want to hear the parts from the record,
yes,
and that makes
yes.
it, that makes it easier,
Oh yeah, and they're really great parts.
Yeah,
they spend a lot of time on them. They're simple. They're accurate. They're exactly what the song needs, and you don't need to go like screwing them up.
Yeah.
The beauty in I mean, they're not all simple, but there's like a beauty in like just like the classic old school style of not overplaying and not too many voicings and stuff, and just keeping it very straight ahead country.
Yeah, I always think too. It's like, somebody spent a lot of time in that studio making decisions to make everything work together. And if you start screwing with the parts, then now this part's not going to work anymore. And like, just honor the parts, and I've really loved that about Dwight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And especially on those, certainly on his early records, everything is so clear and clean, and like there's so much negative space in those records. It's like, man, I can hear a pin drop in this record in the room just about, because there's so much room and space, and that's what makes them so special, I think.
Yeah. And the odd thing about you, this is another thing I feel like is pretty cool. As a guy who likes to talk about college and going to school and stuff and kind of values education, you have a master's degree in Southern Studies.
Yes.
Which is not about music necessarily. I mean, I'm sure there's music but you don't have a music degree, yet you have a master's degree, yet you're making your living. But I love that in a way, it's like, it's pretty cool. I mean, first of all, Southern Studies, only very few places probably offer that as a major, as a degree. Like, maybe talk about that for a little bit, but it also obviously relates to the music that you're playing and that you're into. And you can, I was listening to some of your music that you've composed, and we'll get to that in a second too. And it's like, I can hear the Civil War in your playing.
That's hilarious.
And I wonder if that comes from your Southern Studies.
Actually, I would say it's funny enough. So I wrote my master's thesis on Mississippi fiddle music. So it was about music for what I focused on, but it wasn't actually about necessarily like a performance thing. It was more of like a, academic approach to music, like like an authorial kind of perspective, writing about music, and it was cool because I'd always been a player, and I was like, wow, I kind of get to put on a different, set of pants, for this degree. And, it's actually really benefited me in really weird ways, and projects and approaches that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And it introduced me to a whole new like perspective of thinking, and like this sort of like modern Southern liberal perspective that it like really ingrained in me. And it's been a lens, through which to look at, or to listen to music, and to look at the, historicity behind all the music as well. So it's actually benefited me in totally weird ways. I don't know if did that answer any questions? Was that clear?
Yeah. No, I think
rambling.
No, it's great. It's fascinating. I think it's awesome because it also makes you really interesting to talk to.
Thank you.
On the road, that's an important skill to have. The hang,
yes. Yeah, so the hang is mucho important. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
No, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It makes it a lot of fun, and it's a different perspective than a lot of musicians, I guess, is what I'm, we don't, coming from a more academic place, So anyway,
yeah.
Good on you. So you get done with college, and what brought you out to LA?
Well, I met my wife, and she is a actor and a writer, creator. I mean, she's also great songwriter, great singer, all that stuff. She's just like the most talented, creative person I know. And, we kind of were looking at it, and she had lived in New York before. Like, she had a very untraditional path. She, was cast in Walk the Line when she was in high school. And then so right after high school, she just moved to New York, like she was an actor, that's what she did. Right. So, she always had the place in her heart for New York. And I was like, God, I play all these instruments. This is kind of hard to carry around New York. And, she had lived there, and then we had talked about maybe Nashville. We're like, well, that's not really good for her. We're like, what about LA? We could both do something in LA. They got movies there. Apparently they make movies there. You think? And, yeah. So just a few, so we just thought about what made the most sense. And I had, it's funny, man, I had been all over the country, but I had actually never been to California before. And so I just literally moved to LA sight unseen. We had a friend of hers who was a photographer on a set of a film she was in. And she had said, yeah, I'm, subletting my apartment out. So we moved out, and yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. It was a big, bold, crazy move. And we did, and it, it worked out. So,
yeah, it seems to have. Exactly. Yeah.
It's not always the case.
Yeah, that's for sure. LA eats up a lot of people. Ooh, and spits them out, spits them back to the middle of the country.
Oh boy. That's tough. That's a tough city, man. It's hard.
But your first gig out there was American Idol, basically.
Yes.
Right.
I was in the right place at the right time. Yeah. Doing the right thing. It's like luck, it definitely was fortunate and lucky, but I did play pedal steel, which not a lot of people do. And I did move to LA. So, you had to do those two things in order to get the gig when I got it. So yeah, at that time, that was 2012. In order to drum up work, I was just like putting ads on Craigslist and Backpage and stuff like that. And all PG ads, of course. But legit, musicians were doing that. People were doing that and connecting, and I met tons of people doing this, like a bunch of really cool, talented people who just were looking for a steel guitar player or looking for a fiddle player. And so anyhow, one of those things was I got an email that said, are you available on blank, 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 for pedal steel? If so, call this number. And I read it to my wife. She's like, oh yeah, you need to respond immediately. The brief emails are the best.
Right.
Those are the real emails. And I was like, okay. So I called at this number, and this, someone answered, and it's like, I got a call from, Ernie. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll patch you through. So then this guy came on the line, and he goes, yeah, so are you available, this date? And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, okay. You actually play pedal steel, right? You don't just own one. It's like the most LA question ever. Oh my God. You have to ask,
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do. And, we chatted a few more questions, and I said, is this for like a recording session, or what's this for? And he goes, no, son, this is for American Idol. And I was like, oh God, yes. Okay. So that's how that happened, wow. And it was wild and crazy, and it, totally changed my life. And that's actually the producers, creators, whatever of the show. The management team was represented Lisa Marie Presley. And that's how I got the Lisa Marie gig. Wow, that, because they were like watching the show or something like that, and they was like, oh, there's a young dude playing steel guitar. Let's give him a shout. He plays other stuff, and looked me up, and got in touch, and that's how that happened. So,
oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, Craigslist used to be this magical place, man. It
was great.
Yeah. I got tons of sessions, and I had like weird experiences too. Like one time I answered an ad for smooth jazz I need a smooth jazz bass player on a song.
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, I can do that. So I put it up, and I was like a couple days late. They hit me back and were like, "Oh, is this Eric Baines? Oh, I used you on this other record. Sorry, I already got a guy for this one." But and I'm like, "This is the smallest world ever." That's a bizarre thing to happen over Craigslist. And then another time, I got a production client, like a songwriter, and he knew this other person that I had worked for, and it was just this crazy, cool spot for a while that was getting me a lot of work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I would just repost the ads just every week. They expired after like 5 days or something like that.
Right.
And I would just set reminders on my phone and I would repost them. And I mean, I gotta tell you, man, like you're saying, I got like tons of work. Like there was a golden age where it wasn't a bunch of weirdos. It was like really genuinely people trying to connect. And I mean, I would get these really oddball sessions though. I would just like show up at some house and play fiddle for a song. And I remember one time I was doing a session for this dude and I showed up at the house and it wasn't even that guy's house. The session was at the piano player's house, and the piano player has turned out after the fact, we got to be friends. Like he's one of my good friends now.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
I use him all the time for stuff to record stuff. Sasha Smith, man, he's amazing. So yeah, it's so weird how stuff happens.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. And that's also very LA there too. It's like so many studios are in people's houses, and you just show up to some weird house. And I remember I auditioned actually for Robin Thicke back before he was huge at like his dad's house or something, where he had a studio set up in like the living room, or maybe it was even his house. I don't know, but it was this.
Oh yeah,
it's a house, but you walk in and there's like a console, and like it was a studio, and he's sitting there and he's like, "Yeah, here's my new song," and working the console, and like, "Here, just play along." And I'm like, "Okay, cool," I didn't get the gig, but whatever. I thought it sounded great.
I'm sure you did.
Wow, that's amazing. How would you like to hang out and talk about music, or discuss something you've heard on the podcast? How about learning some new techniques on the bass? Do you have a new song and would like some feedback from an experienced and professional songwriter? You can do all of that and more at golive.ly. I'm offering private bass lessons and songwriting feedback in a private setting over Zoom. Just search for me, Eric Baines, at golive.ly, pick a date and time, and schedule a lesson. It's that easy. I can teach you advanced bass techniques, music theory, improvisation, or we can talk about how to prepare for a gig, the best thing to wear to an audition, or the most important things to know about living on a tour bus. If you have a new song that isn't quite working, and you need some feedback from someone who's written and co-written hundreds of songs for artists, TV, film, and video games, I can help you with that too. All skill levels are welcome. Search for Eric Baines at golive.ly, golive.ly, and I can't wait to meet you. I'd like to take a second and thank you for listening to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast. Getting the word out is a vital part of what it takes to keep this show on the road, and the easiest way to help is to subscribe wherever you listen, and if you have an extra minute or two, please leave a review. You can also follow our page on Facebook, which is the Dive Bar Rockstar Podcast, or follow me on Instagram at Dive Bar Rockstar. Okay, enough begging. I hope you're having a great time, and once again, thank you for listening. So how was that experience? You were on the original American Idol before it's on like Fox now or something, right? Like you were...
Man, I have no idea.
I think that was like the original run, right? But
no, it was on. I thought it was on Fox.
Yeah.
That when I wait, what now?
Or maybe
I don't remember what station it was on, network it was on. I don't.
Well, who were the judges? That would be the tell.
It changed over years, man. Okay. All right.
Was Simon still there?
No, Simon was not there. It was Randy Jackson was there. Steven Tyler, Keith Urban was a judge. Jennifer Lopez was a judge. Nicki Minaj was a judge. All kinds of, and it was crazy. It was pretty amazing. And those people were all actually like, they would just be backstage with us, like to walk out, They were always super nice.
That's yeah, and that's got to be another cool part about that gig. Like you get to kind of schmooze with other people that could do things for you. I mean, obviously you got another gig out of it, but
yeah, well, there's that, and then all the other musicians, you would start working, hanging out, and it's like, well, I need so and so on a track, So, when I was doing it for a while, Teddy Campbell was the drummer.
Yeah,
and he's like, I want pedal steel on a track. Would you come to my studio and do that? So I'm like, wow. I mean, just how things would transpire like that. It was really cool.
That's pretty awesome. And do you think, I often wonder, like, you're so Southern, like,
Yes.
everyone can hear you talk,
Yeah.
you're legit from the South,
Yes.
do you think that, but you play pedal steel and you play fiddle. So you think that's been an advantage? Whereas if you played saxophone, maybe it wouldn't have been in LA. I don't know.
Like white country dude from Mississippi plays fiddle and pedal steel. I mean, it's people need to have a box to put you in.
Yeah.
Just in like life in general. So I guess it was a good box to be put in. I mean, it worked out. I mean, people weren't. It didn't seem like it wasn't confusing.
Right. Yeah.
Like, of course you do these like country instruments,
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, because I came out as a very white suburban dude wanting to play R&B, and like that's confusing. But it's all worked out, I guess. I think that's like the thing about the Dwight gig is like it was the least confusing gig I'd ever done with my particular look.
Being white.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm a white guy doing a white gig. It makes
Yes.
okay. That makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
You finally look the part,
Yes. Oh, yes, that's what we've been looking for.
So you've done a ton of library music.
Yes.
And, which is kind of because that's the other thing I feel like about you. You not really didn't set out to be a road dog. You're more into the studio stuff, and I know your passion really is in film and TV, like scoring and stuff. Correct?
Yeah, man. I mean, I love playing on the road. It's fun to go play out in front of people and have that energy and stuff. But there is definitely something. It's pretty nice to sleep in your own bed at night. So I do, and what I do love about especially like scoring and stuff is that you get to really create something that's never been before. So you're playing out on the road, and unless you're just doing totally improvised music every night and like some jazz or jam band kind of situation, you're pretty much you got the script, and you're kind of sticking to it, and you're and that doesn't mean that the things don't, there's no variation. It doesn't mean that there aren't audibles and stuff like that. And I mean, certainly on the Dwight gig, there's audibles,
right.
And
right.
And that's the best part of it. Like when he starts throwing audibles, you're like, all right, we're doing this tonight. Let's do it. Hope I know this song.
I know. Yeah.
But that's what makes it fun, and, but the cool thing about like, especially like film composition and TV stuff is that you get to bring something totally unique, and the weirder, the better, usually the more unique, the better. Cause every, director, producer, all that, they all want to have this, they all want their show to have the cool, unique sound. It's like when Stranger Things popped on the scene, you would have thought modular synths had just been invented.
Right.
It's like, listen how cool and synthy this is. It's like, yeah, this people have been doing this since the 70s, dude. This is not new. They're just kind of like not even rediscovered. They're just, the first that you've heard it in a popular sense.
Right.
So that's kind of easily my favorite part. And like, how can I make this sound in the most unique way? Like I'll, get, like violins and violas and, play them with a drumstick and stuff, like on the fretting thing, and make scratchy noises and stuff. Because so much of, especially modern composition, is not so much always, like melodic, as it can also just be like very like, moods and tones and textures. And, it's a texture more than it is a song, so to speak.
Right. Right.
Like a full melody of a sweeping thing. And obviously there's films and shows where that's the thing, but and so much now it's just like we want this like weird ambient synth guitar thing, it's nondescript mood and vibe to be matched. So that's a fun thing for me. So, and
you do it really well.
Oh, well, thank you.
I was listening to this some of the score of the Showtime show, The Good Lord Bird.
Oh, thank you, man.
And man, it's just so vibey and cool. And it's cool, like you're saying, like, I think what's unique about what you do is like it's all organic stuff, but you're hearing crazy things that you've never heard before, but it's all real instruments, for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, or it's at least supposed to sound a lot like a real instrument. Like for a piano, I'm just usually going to, that's going to be a plug-in because there's so many options. Right. I have a piano, but sometimes it makes more sense. So I can go back and change things it's like, man, I don't have to play the piano part again. That's a lot of work. And there's plugins that you can't tell the difference. So why would I be the discerning one to try to tell the difference? But it true on the organic thing. And what I especially did with that score a lot was I would take all these, organic instruments and kind of like shape them, and I would run them through filters and a bunch of like echoes and reverbs and delays and all these tremolo on unusual instruments that you wouldn't traditionally put. It's not just like a tremolo guitar, it's like, what about tremolo acoustic guitar, stuff like that. Like, how can we make it different and unique and weird and bring this unique voice with these traditional instruments and put it in a modern context? So,
well, I think you nailed it.
Oh, well, thank you so much, man.
I'm not like a film score critic or anything, but it's really fun to listen to,
Oh, well, thank you.
Which, it says something, I think, because it's all the same instruments that we've heard for centuries.
Yes.
In a way that's like interesting to listen to, like something new, and fresh and different and vibey. And it's cool. I kind of get what you're saying. It's kind of like a place where a composer can be as most creative as possible, where there's not a lot of places that exist like that in the music industry anymore.
Yeah. Well, like with the occasional like weird kind of like sounds and like pop music and stuff, if you're listening to like a Billie Eilish song or something like that, it's like, oh man, it's some cool, weird kind of stuff floating around in the ether back there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not super common. I mean, I feel like a lot of times on pop tracks, it's actually going to be your weirdest and most creative stuff, because they're always kind of like looking for like a new sound to like sample and just have like kind of repeating in a track.
And I know because I was there a lot too. It's like you do a lot of stuff from the road, or at least you were, because that's got to be tricky when you're dealing with a show and deadlines. Yet you've got gigs to do as well. but you've managed to kind of work out a road rig and do a lot of recording as you go.
Yeah. It's just like the bag of stuff to lug around. And also helps that on, especially like the Dwight gig, there's a tons of instruments floating around that I could, I'm like, oh man, if I need a guitar, I can go grab one and, take it to the hotel room and record it. And, that's just normal, it's, or backstage even. Like, all right, guys, I'm going to the venue early. I'm going to go to the bathroom and lock myself in there and find the only quiet space in this weird hall or something, and make it work. You just have to be creative. And I feel like when you start worrying about like, oh, is this space perfectly acoustically, tuned, and does it sound perfect and right? It's like, well, no, but neither did, the most classic recording studio, well, with the exception of all the, big stuff in like New York and LA and stuff in Nashville. Obviously those studios are pretty perfect, but
right.
Like Sun Studios, is not perfect.
Right.
And that's what makes it cool.
And that's what becomes a sound.
Yes, that's the sound. Royal Studios in Memphis, like that's the sound, so Fame and and Muscle Shoals, that's the sound. And that's what's cool about it. So yeah.
And that, which also lends itself to what you do, because you're looking for weird sounds or different sounds or unique sounds. I shouldn't say weird.
Yes. I go for weird. Well, it's funny, like I'm like, like with drums, like I don't really go for like, oh, this like perfect crisp drum sound or something like that. Cause I just don't do that kind of stuff. Maybe I should, I don't know, but anyhow, I don't. Yeah. And I'm just like, I just want it to sound weird and thuddy and, mostly lean on the room mic or something, like what can I do that's going to be kind of like old school and different. And, but you can kind of like, totally smash it and make it loud enough as it is in, modern recordings, but still like an old school thing. So,
right. So how much do you take on the road? I guess the thing is like, you don't need that much stuff either anymore, which is kind of awesome.
Oh, it's the best. God, I'm looking at a Universal Audio Apollo Twin. Mm-hmm. The greatest invention ever made.
I know, fantastic. Right?
Oh, it's the best. I mean, it's like, well, first of all, I mean, how often do I record more than, and I can chain in more. When I do drums here at the house, I got, strips that I can, like digital ends and stuff like that. But I mean, that's my primary thing. Cause it's so simple. I'm just like, all right, I just unplug it, plug it back up and take it with me. And I need a hard drive, a laptop, a little bitty keyboard, and, that, and pair of headphones. And I mean, you can plug anything into it. If I need like a guitar, or a steel guitar, or a microphone or something like that, I've done that too. Mm-hmm. And, I can overdub stuff. And if I need to, program parts, I can do that, or at least mock something up that I can then go back and record organically if I need to. So
right.
A lot of options. And I can also record just tons of stuff, like kitchen sink it. And then I can take, my rig out and just edit tracks as well. So I can then do editing and like basically get it close to mixed. And then, I've done tons of work that otherwise would have just been, wasted time. So,
right.
So it's, either recording or editing, mixing. So cleaning things up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You were always working.
I try to always be working.
Yeah. It's pretty, it's impressive though. It's like, it's so easy to fall into, well, I mean, now that we have babies and stuff, for me, I'm like, the first couple days is just sleeping.
Sleep.
But that's getting better. The kids get older, and
oh yeah,
it's getting a lot easier to get a nice sleep. But I don't know. I still enjoy the quiet.
Oh yeah, there's a quiet factor, but then I feel so guilty and bad about it sometimes. I can't even enjoy it. I'm just like, oh, my poor wife. She's sitting there. She's back at the loony bin.
Yeah.
Dealing with the dog and the kid and just like all this stuff. And, it's, it's a lot of work, man. The kid thing, it's the most rewarding, and it's also a lot of work.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I was thinking that earlier when you told the story about moving your wedding too. It's like, it takes a unique woman to date or marry a person like us. It's a lot of stuff you got to put up with, and they've got to be flexible, and I don't know, you got to support some weird stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like a household with two artists is that's hard, man. It's just to manage it, to balance it all. It's beautiful, and it's like, you're both kind of like going through different, creative processes and stuff like that. And, but I love, like, I'll pop by, like I just did earlier, and she's like writing something, and she's like, let me run this by you. She's reading. I'm just like dying laughing. I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. That's so great. I was like, you're brilliant. You're wonderful. I'm like, all right, love you. Now I'm going to talk to Eric. She says hello.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I said hi to you.
So it's that kind of thing that I love. Getting those little snippets of what's going on in her mind and stuff as well. So that's a beautiful thing.
Well, I'm trying something different on this episode, something new.
Oh wow! All right.
I was like, and people have suggested this in the past, but I guess it took me a while to really develop certain things. But I'm sure because your wife's an actress, you've seen Inside the Actor's Studio.
Yes. And
I'm trying to come up with my own set of questions to sort of end all the show with, that I think are interesting. And so answer these as long as the answer or as short as the answer you want. And so anyway, you're the first. You're the guinea pig.
Wow. I'm so honored.
Yeah. And this is an interesting question, I think, for you, because I am not like this, but what time do you get up in the morning?
I get up right before my son wakes up. So I usually get up at 7 a.m. That's my time. We put him down at 7 and he gets up at 7. So I get up at 7.
Got you. Great. And not all, I think that's an interesting question for musicians, because there's all kinds of answers, which people, I think you look at musicians and you're like, oh, these guys, they sleep till noon and they're out all night partying and, whatever. And that's just a lot of times not the case.
No. And if I'm if I'm like scoring a film, that'll be like 5 o'clock, usually 5 or 6. So I can get up early and get a bunch of stuff done. Cause I like to do dad stuff. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. And the second question, did you graduate college?
Yes.
Yes. Good. We already talked about that. Okay. If a gig starts at 9, what time do you get there? Is there a sound check? Let's say no.
No sound check.
Like if it's like a bar gig or a wedding gig or a
bar gig, there's no sound check, and I just but I have to set all my stuff up.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it depends on how much I'm sorry, I'm ruining this question.
No, it's kind of interesting because you have so much here.
I gotta set up. If I bring like pedal steel and fiddle, I mean that takes me about between getting it out of the car, setting it up, getting it out of the way, tuning it up. I mean that takes a solid 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And
then I want to get there a little on the earlier side, just like maybe have a beer and, chit chat, that kind of thing, but not too early. So, man, I'd say like 7. If the gig starts at 9, 7. Yeah. That feels respectful. That feels good.
Feels accurate.
Yeah, it feels accurate.
Excellent. So next question. How often do you listen to music for pleasure?
Oh, man. See, this varies a lot. I'm the worst. Sorry, I'm answering this question. So, okay. So in the car, I almost never listen to music.
Interesting.
And I'm talking 10-hour road trip. I don't listen to music. I sit there in silence and I just drive. I don't. how often, man, almost very rarely actually. It sounds more sad than it is. But if I'm on the road, I find that I listen to music more. Like when I'm out playing, I've been listening to more music because I've just been in the car and I've been just wanting to sing. So I'll just like listen to music to sing along to.
Mhm.
But if I don't want to sing, then I usually don't listen to music.
Yeah, I think that might be a pretty typical answer. Like I'm a lot the same way. I find having a kid lately has made me listen to more music because I want to expose him to things. And like,
yes,
now I'm just like, if we're making dinner or something, hey, Google, play blah, 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 and just to try and keep that going, which has been good for me. Because, yeah, I think as a musician, it's like the last thing I want to do, which sounds sad, but at the same time, maybe it is sad. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, my wife, like, she listens to music constantly. Like, she like loves it, and it's always finding something new and doing it. So, I mean, there's always music playing at my house that she's listening to usually, and I mean, I always like. She has a great taste in music, so I like it. Mm-hmm. But like, that's what that's like really her thing. Like, she finds a lot of like solace and peace listening to music. So I inadvertently listen to a lot with her, and she's always good about like setting the vibe. Like, we're like cooking dinner, she'll like play something great. She'll be like listen to Miles Davis radio or something like that, or like Billie Holiday or something like classic trad jazz or some cool bebop or something like that. And for dinner and stuff, she's always doing that, and she's really, really good about exposing our son to music, which apparently I'm terrible at.
Oh, that's cool. Well, at least one of you are doing it. That's awesome.
Exactly.
And 3 more questions, and then I'll let you go. I know I'm taking up a bunch of your time, but
oh, no. Great. Let's keep going.
Okay. Do you still get nervous before you go on stage?
It depends on the gig, but generally speaking, I don't like to be so unprepared that I'm nervous. I like to be prepared, and when I'm prepared, I'm not nervous. And maybe a little excited, maybe like a little like, it's funny. I actually get less nervous in front of like a huge show.
Right.
Like if I'm playing in front of 15 people at like my local bar here in town, I would be 10 million times more nervous because I'm like, they're actually like really paying attention to me. They're going to hear what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm going to have to, these are my friends. They're going to like troll me if I play horribly. But I mean, a huge show, it's like, it's just so big. You can't even feel just like the intimacy of it. So so not usually that nervous because I'm usually prepared.
That's brilliant. That's something that hasn't come up on this show yet, which is really interesting because it's something I say all the time. Like, how do you overcome nerves and be prepared? That's exactly right. Because I've been known to be accused of over preparing, mainly by my wife, who has to be like, why are you spending 8 hours working?
The songs.
Exactly. Yeah. Why are you spending 8 hours on this wedding band gig? Well, because I don't want to suck even then. I don't, and that's when I know everything and I don't have to think. I just go in and play and no time to be nervous. So what song do you never get sick of playing?
Well, my current gig, Ain't That Lonely Yet.
Nice.
Man, I love that song so much. I love the chords. I could just sit there and just snack on those chords all night long, man. I love the changes. I love it, man. It's so great. I love the song. I love the vibe. I love everything about that song. It's fantastic.
That's great. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I love that song. And you start that song, like that's a very exposed song for you on keyboards, organ.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's not a fun one to screw up.
Yeah, right. All right. And last question, do you feel like you've made it, quote unquote?
In certain aspects of my career, I do feel like I have. And then in some, I don't. like maybe as a touring musician, as a live road performing dude, I feel like I've made it, because I've gotten the opportunity to play with just so many artists that are like, heroes and so impressive. And I've gotten to do that thing. I've gotten to travel to all 50 states. I've gotten to travel the world. I've had such cool opportunities. I got to live and support my life, doing primarily that for the majority of my adult life. So I'd say in that sense, I quote, moved to LA, and I got a great gig and got to play on some huge stuff. And so I would say in that aspect, I have, in like a more composition sense, I wouldn't maybe feel the same way, because it's like the gigs are just more few and far between. They're just more, there's only so many films, there's only so many TV shows, there's a lot of composers, a lot of them are very good, a lot of them have been doing it for a very long time, and they're very talented. And you have to really, even the most talented composers who've done tons of stuff, they're still fighting for gigs. You still have to claw to get those. So I don't know if anyone ever really, unless you're like one of the top 5 to 10 people who who's having their door beat down, I don't know if anyone would ever just about feel like they've made it. I don't know. That's a really hard business to make it in,
Right.
So in some ways yes, in some ways no, for my awful answer.
It's an amazing answer.
I think back to that SNL skit where where Will Ferrell's Harry Carey, he's like, it's a yes or no question. If you were a hot dog and you're starving, would you eat yourself? It's a yes or no question. It's so easy, a baby could answer it. So,
oh man, that's great. Well, I think it's interesting because people look at you when you're on big stages and they're like, oh, this guy's made it, and to get the real thoughts from people that are accused of that on the regular basis is it's generally, to me, it's always an interesting answer.
Well, I mean, in the sense of the opportunities that I've done, but things evaporate overnight. You never know. I mean, everyone who I've ever played with who could just say like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, I don't know who to call now. Like what would I then do? Who would I play with then? So then I maybe wouldn't feel like I'd made it.
Right.
It's
back to Craigslist.
Yeah.
You're only one gig away from Craigslist all the time.
Boy, that's so true, man. Oh yes.
Well, this has been awesome, dude. Like,
this has been wonderful.
I appreciate you coming on and talking and sharing and being open and you're an awesome dude. I definitely miss the hang and miss playing with you every night.
Likewise, the same, man. This has been so much fun, and we need to do this more often.
That's the thing. Like you, like a lot of other guests, there's just so much to talk about, and so yeah, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, you got 7 more terabytes, so let's see what we can do.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric, man. This is so much fun.
Well, I certainly had a great time as well. I had a lot of fun, man. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I liked when he said, you say no too many times and people quit asking, because I think that's the second phase of networking that we don't always talk about. It's not just about meeting people. It's about keeping yourself in the forefront of their minds. Out of sight, out of mind is another way to say it. It's important to stay in touch with people or they learn to live without you. So you want them to think of you as soon as that phone rings and they either need a sub or someone asks them, hey, do you know a bass player? And it's easier now more than ever because of social media, but I still think that nothing beats getting in front of people. Go to shows, get together for lunch or coffee and find out where musicians hang out and show up. Because people are going to call the players that they trust, not only to play well, but be nice, normal people. And every time you send a sub or recommend somebody, you're really putting your job on the line a bit. So you got to make sure that who you're sending is going to represent you well. And so it's important for you to go and show people who you are and show them that that you're a trustworthy and decent human, so that they're not afraid to call you and send you to represent them. I also like what he said about how being prepared eliminates the nerves. I think that is so true. And I usually talk about being prepared in the context of getting more gigs, because like the players that show up prepared will get hired sometimes over better players, because what's the use in having a monster player who doesn't know your songs? But the other reason to be prepared is to calm your nerves, especially if you're a particularly nervous person, or if you deal with anxiety, because usually you're nervous because you're afraid you're going to screw up. So make sure that you've done everything in your power to prevent that from happening. I try to show up on a new gig sounding like I've been playing the music for 20 years. That's like always my goal, especially if there's no rehearsals or very little rehearsals. And it's the only way that you can really enjoy it. I want to enjoy the performance. I want to give a good performance. I don't want to just be worried about screwing up and in my head and just worried about getting the music right. It's really not a fun way to do gigs. Linda Perry actually came in on Lisa Marie's second album called Now What? She actually co-wrote 7 songs on that record. American Idol was originally on Fox, and now it's on ABC, and I might add, the show is unbelievably good now, especially without Simon. Audibles are when an artist just calls out a song on stage, and it's usually not on the set list. Some cover bands don't even use set lists, and it's just all audibles. And some artists build sections of their show that are made just for audibles. Like from these next 3 songs, I'm just going to decide when I get there. And the list of questions at the end of Inside the Actor's Studio, that show that I'm trying to emulate, was inspired by Bernard Pivot, but host James Lipton mistakenly thought it was Pivot's idea. The idea was actually originated by French writer Marcel Proust and was called the Proust Questionnaire. And by the way, let me know if you have any questions that you'd like to add to my list. I'm still developing it, so tell me some of the questions that you'd like to ask everybody. And also tell me some of your answers. Hit me up on social media and let me know how you would answer some of these questions. All right, well, that's my show, and I hope you had a really great time, and I'll talk at you later. I'm a dive bar rock star. Wow, you've made it to the end. I'm hoping it's because you completely enjoyed yourself and are now filled with knowledge and inspiration to move forward with your dreams. If that is the case and you would like to stay informed of new episodes, live events, and general news, please go to divebarrockstar.com and sign up for the mailing list. If you have any questions, comments, corrections, or complaints about anything you hear on the show, please email me at fanmail@divebarrockstar.com, and you may even end up on the show. We at the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, with all of our hearts, thank you for listening, and remember, it's all about dreams.